Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Alright, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Muli po tayo nagbabalik sa napakaganda reaction video. Ako po si Opinion and Reaction PH. Panoorin at reaksyonan po natin itong napakagandang special coverage nito. Ang tinalakay nga dito yung pag-strike ng Amerika sa mga nuclear site ng Iran. Pero bago po tayo magpatuloy sa ating reaction video, huwag nyo naman pong kalimutan pindutin ang like, share at subscribe. Take note lang po mga kababayan, hindi po tayo masyadong magkokomento dito sa kaguluhang ito kasi medyo labas naman talaga tayo dito no.
We can report that Donald Trump has confirmed American forces have struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran. Now, the US president is due to speak from the White House at any moment. We're standing by to bring that to you live. That is going to be an address to the nation. The box you can see on the screen right there is being fed from the White House. You'll see Mr. Trump appear in that any minute, but we will bring that to you as it happens. There's been reaction from Israel as well. So let's bring in our foreign editor, Hugh Whitfield, leading our coverage and joining me at the desk now. We've heard from Benjamin Netanyahu just a few seconds ago, Hugh.
Michael, the Israeli Prime Minister is saying that America has been unsurpassed, doing something that no other country was capable of doing, and that is attacking those three nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan, those three nuclear facilities where it is believed Iran was working towards a nuclear weapon. Now, Fordo, just outside Tehran, was the most difficult for Israel to attack if they were going to do it alone. It is deep inside the mountains, about 80 to 90 metres below the surface. It is a nuclear enrichment site. And then Isfahan is where they were believed to be turning nuclear-grade uranium into weapons-grade uranium. And that path to a nuclear weapon is what the world has been fearing from Iran. There is wide consensus, particularly across the Western world, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. The question was, how do you stop them? Through diplomacy or strikes like this?
Well, Mr Trump has answered that and used strikes instead of diplomacy. Hugh, reading just before we came on air that it looks like at least three of those incredible B-2 US bombers have been used. A live shot of the White House where we'll be taking Donald Trump's address in just a second. Three B-2 bombers, particularly in that site that you mentioned, Fordo, dropping those incredible 6-metre long massive ordnance bunker buster bombs. These are the things that dig tens of metres underground and penetrate that site, geographically a difficult area.
Yeah, and only America has those B-2 bombers capable of carrying these weapons, and they are the ones that drill right down below the surface, up to 60 metres below the surface, and then explode after the impact with the Earth. So it means that the missiles are burying down deep below before going off. Now, Iran has offered some limited reaction at this stage, saying that so far they believe there is no fallout, there is no radiation from Fordo in particular. But of course, the big question comes after this address by the US president: what will be Iran's response? Will it be a military response, or will they come to the table?
Well, here comes Mr Trump now, Hugh. Let's just start to listen into him because he will begin speaking immediately, flanked by his Vice President and Republican leaders.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, the US President Donald Trump speaking there, flanked by his Vice President, his Secretary of State and Secretary of Defence there, Hugh Whitfield on the desk with me. Should also add too that we have our reporters in Washington DC and also in Tel Aviv who will cross to shortly. But Hugh Whitfield, our foreign editor, at the desk. There's Marley and there's Jackie. We'll go to you both in a minute for reaction to what we've just heard. And we will play what Benjamin Netanyahu has said as well. He's released a video statement. But Hugh, that is interesting. I think the bit toward the end is more fascinating. Donald Trump saying after this aggressive strike, it's now up to Iran to talk about peace, to go down diplomatic channels, it would seem. But if not, they will bomb more, and there are many more targets to get.
Yeah, it's a decision that Donald Trump is putting on Tehran. Is this one and done from the US, or will there be more strikes to come? Now, Donald Trump saying there that the choice is peace or tragedy. So he's effectively trying to engender a situation where the Iranian regime comes to the negotiating table. Now, there were talks in Geneva in the last 24 hours with European foreign ministers. That did not go so well because Iran effectively said there will be no further negotiations until Israel stops its strikes. Now the US has come into it. So Iran being pushed into a corner now. Do they want to come to the negotiating table, end their nuclear program completely, or do they want further attacks?
Let's just bring up on the screen too to remind our viewers what we're talking about here. This is the United States using its absolute military might to strike 3 targets deep inside Iran. There they are coming up on the screen now. Fordo, that was the most difficult site, we understand, Natanz and Isfahan, as Hugh was describing earlier when we came on air less than 10 minutes ago. Fordo was the difficult site, and that's where we believe the US has used its enormous B-2 long-range bombers and dropped those bunker-busting bombs on that site, which has the capacity to penetrate deep underground. Of course, Hugh, the threat here, the risk was, if you destroy nuclear facilities, what chance of radiation and further damage from there? We're not getting any indication at all, are we, out of Iran that is the case at this stage?
The early indication from Iran is that there is no radiation, but the president there confirming what he described as massive precision strikes on those 3 locations. He described Iran as the #1 state sponsor of terror and said that this operation has been a spectacular military success, saying that the Tehran regime has been the bully in the Middle East and they must now make peace. And Donald Trump has spoken for some time about his mantra of peace through strength. He has said that for 40 years Iran has been saying death to America. And in fact, in the last 24 hours, we saw the people of Iran on the streets burning American and Israeli flags. He described the pilots who flew those missions in those B-2 bombers as American patriots and said he hoped they wouldn't have to be called upon again, with the hope that there may be peace through this American strength. But the ball is now very much in the court of those leaders in Tehran and the Ayatollah.
We'll try and get some vision up also of what those B-2 bombers look like so our viewers right now can get an understand of the military hardware that's been used on this. But I might just head now overseas. Hugh, stay on the desk with me. I know you're going to show us in more detail on the map in a minute the areas that we're talking about. Marley Hogan, Jackie Robson, Washington DC and Tel Aviv. Let's go to you now. Marley Hogan, this is An interesting position for the US president. I mean, for some days now, he had been telling the world that, look, in the next 2 weeks, we might take some action, but the decision's mine, only I know about it. And then sure enough, within hours, in the very early hours of the morning in Iran, he's ordered that incredible military strike.
Yeah, Masha, it was only 2 days ago that US President Donald Trump was saying that he would make his decision within the next 2 weeks. And even then, we were reporting that there was speculation coming from Iranian officials wondering if that was a decoy or a distraction and that a strike was imminent. There's now a very strong case that that is the way that the US President was always thinking. On the other hand, we don't know if there was a tipping point for the US President where he decided that he didn't feel that Iran was going to come to the negotiating table and that there was going to be a possibility of making progress there. It was only yesterday that Iran's foreign minister was saying that he would negotiate only if Donald Trump picked up the phone to his ally, Benjamin Netanyahu, and told him to stop those strikes. And we know that yesterday Donald Trump said that that would be something very difficult to do, and now he has made the decision to go ahead. Look, the big question now is what will Iran do? US troops will be bracing for Iranian retaliation. There are more than 40,000 troops stationed across the Middle East. There are bases in the UAE, in Turkey, Qatar, Bahrain. Now, we know that the US has been preparing for any kind of retaliation. It has been bolstering its forces in the region. They were even shipping over extra blood supply in case there are any retaliation or any strikes towards those troops. But right now, those 40,000 troops are all potential Iranian targets. Of course, Donald Trump, in that announcement that he put out on social media that he had done these strikes, he also said that now is the time for peace, suggesting that there could still be a diplomatic solution here. But we don't know how Iran feels about that. We know that Iran's foreign minister isn't in the country. Well, he wasn't in the country when these strikes took place. He was in Turkey, and he made a comment saying that if the US gets involved in this conflict, that it is going to be a very dangerous situation. That's what comments that he made only hours earlier. Now, other options for Iran is that they could lean into more nuclear activity. We need to know for sure how successful the US attack was. Obviously, Donald Trump says that it was a complete obliteration, but we'll need to see more evidence of that, which we should get in the coming hours.
Yeah, and Marley, actually, we're looking at pictures on the screen now. We're told, just in from the White House. That's him in the Situation Room with his Vice President, J.D. Vance, as the strikes were happening. That's a new image there. Jackie Robson in Tel Aviv, Israel, I do want to go to you, but first we have the video statement from the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's have a listen to that.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
Well, let's bring in Jackie Robson, who's in Tel Aviv, Israel. A very strong, even jubilant statement there from Benjamin Netanyahu. As we've seen in your reporting over recent days, a heightened state of alert in Israel. I'd imagine that is going to get even worse now.
Well, Michael, Israelis will be waking up to this news. It's 5 o'clock in the morning here, so they'll be learning of this major and significant development. And since those attacks took place, the Homefront Command that issues alerts for its citizens has stepped up those restrictions. That means that no one is going to school, no one is going to work, and no one is gathering in large groups. They were wound back slightly over the past few days. Schools remained closed, but people were able to return to the workplace if there was a bunker, and there was also a relaxation of the ability to gather in groups. But of course, that heightening of those restrictions now means that Israel is bracing for retaliation, and it's almost inevitable that that is going to happen. We know how the Supreme Leader talks about the attacks on Israel. We know that the Iranian state TV has reportedly been broadcasting threats such as every American citizen and military personnel in the region is now a target. Whether or not those attacks happen here in Israel or on US defence personnel scattered throughout the Middle East, we'll have to wait and see. It also begs the question, what happens to the Australians who have been trapped in this area? We know that the number of Australians who have registered for help with the Australian Foreign Affairs Department has been increasing over coming days. 3,800 Australians have been registering for help to try and get out of this conflict zone. We know that they had been moving the C-17 Globemasters around the Middle East, one based in Dubai at least, to try and get into Israel with the hope that the airspace would open in coming days. It's unclear if that will still happen, whether or not this has seen the threat subside or whether it has heightened it, and therefore not having that airspace open. We'll have to wait and see. There was a bus due to repatriate a number of Australians out of Tel Aviv into Jordan early today, around 9 o'clock. That's cast doubt. We don't know if that will happen. You'd have to assume that it's unlikely given the heightened threat of retaliation. While we've been here in Israel earlier on in the conflict, there was quite a barrage of missiles being fired from Iran, but that has subsided over recent days. Yesterday, we didn't even receive an air raid siren, whereas earlier on they would be coming through quite regularly, at least 4 a day. We know that Israel has taken out much of the military top brass of Iran, so whether or not their stocks are depleted, we know they're weakened. We now have to wait and see if the retaliation comes through today, and we'll be here with all the updates. Michael?
All right, Jackie, thank you. Retaliation might be difficult. I mean, Israel is certainly saying that it has complete air domination over Iran, which is something else. Tim Lester's our security editor in Canberra. I'm going to go to you now. Tim, good afternoon to you now. It is now good afternoon. A spectacular military success is what Donald Trump is calling this. Quite an awesome strike by the American military.
Yes, he is, and so much now hangs on whether he's right, one, and whether Israel has effectively degraded Iran to the point that it's unable to mount an effective counter-response, and an enormous amount of interest from Australian officials and the Australian government here on those questions, and essentially on the question of what happens next. We understand that the Prime Minister is returning to Canberra this afternoon. He was going to have a close look at what the President had to say in the address we've just watched before deciding how, if at all, he responds publicly to what's going on. Sooner or later, no doubt he'll have to. But for Australia, a number of very pressing questions now. The most pressing, perhaps, the safety of those 3,800 Australians that Jackie mentioned who are looking for a way out of the Middle East, and when our troops there may be able to help their evacuation take effect. A lot depends, of course, on the course of the conflict over coming days in that regard. But there are broader questions longer term here, Michael. There's the question of is Iran able to capably counter-strike against the United States? If so, then as a long-term and very close US ally, what does that mean for Australia in terms of our US support. Those are all unanswered questions, but they're questions that are a lot more pressing for our government this afternoon, given this action today.
No doubt we will hear from Anthony Albanese when he gets back to Canberra, perhaps even beforehand, so we'll take that and bring it to you as well. Tim, thank you. We may come back to you, but I want to just go back to Hugh Whitfield on the desk. Let me just ask our producers here too. Let's bring up the map again just to remind our viewers, Hugh, of what we're talking about here, those 3 strikes. Quite a way into Iran as well. They're coming up there. This was fascinating, Hugh, over the last 2 weeks now. We've seen Israel bombard parts of Iran and claiming that they had complete control of Iranian airspace, making any retaliatory strikes by Iran incredibly difficult. Do we then say that they've in fact cleared the way for the US to go in and do what it has done today?
Michael, Iran has been running out of missiles in 2 respects. Firstly, many of their launch sites have been hit by Israel, and also they've been firing a lot of missiles at Israel as well. Now, they had the capability to fight a conflict at the level they've been fighting Israel for about 3 or 4 weeks at a max. We're now, 10 days into the conflict with Israel at this stage. So they probably had another 20 days at this stage to keep firing on Israel. Now, there were some attacks by Israel on Fordo, but there was a limited impact at that site, and only America, as we've been saying, had the capability to completely destroy it. The question is, as the sun rises in Iran, what the level of damage will be. Iran, through its state news agency, has been describing it in the last little while as a savage assault by the United States. A blatant violation of international law, they say, particularly the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Now, the fact that they are saying that means that the Iranian people will hear it as well. And what efforts will they go to coalesce the Iranian people around the regime for a potential fight back against the United States? We're also hearing from the United Nations as well, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, saying there is a growing risk that this conflict could rapidly get out of control with catastrophic consequences for civilians, the region and the world. And we do know, of course, that Donald Trump has largely sidelined the UN throughout both his first and second terms. Importantly too, in the next couple of days, there is a NATO summit taking place in The Hague. Our Defence Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles is going to that. That now becomes a critical meeting for leaders, presidents and prime ministers from countries across the Western world to confront Donald Trump and work out exactly what is the end game here. Is it the end of Iran's nuclear program, or is it regime change? Benjamin Netanyahu will want regime change. Other leaders will want just an end to the nuclear program so that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon.
A question we can't answer with our limited experience here, but is the intelligence correct? Were these 3 sites genuine targets, and whose intelligence was it?
Michael Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, just in the last couple of weeks was telling US Congress that Iran was not capable of developing a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump in the last 72 hours or so said that she was not right, and she has now been, in the last couple of days, largely sidelined from those discussions that have been taking place with the President inside the Situation Room.
She wasn't on message. Let's have a look too. I think we're being told there's some new pictures coming in that the White House has released of the President in the Situation Room. We saw one shot earlier with the Vice President JD Vance alongside him. We'll bring them up as we're talking as well, because the White House is starting to release. There's some images there. The President either in the throes of making the decision or in fact watching the strikes happen as they do. Certainly a lot of advisors around. Hugh, we had the President foxing the world, really saying that maybe in the next 2 weeks he'd have a think about this, and only he knew what he was going to do. But judging by those images, thought out, planned and executed. And
sometimes we get an indication that something is going on. They talk about the pizza meter at the Pentagon when they order pizzas in because they're all going to be in lockdown effectively for big decisions to be made. Donald Trump had spent the weekend at Bedminster, his golf course, or he'd spent Saturday at Bedminster, his golf course and resort in New Jersey. And on Saturday afternoon, he had returned to the White House, a rare return by the President to the White House on a Saturday, and that was probably the best indication that a big decision was coming.
It'll be interesting for our government here, won't it, Hugh? I mean, Anthony Albanese and the Foreign Minister Penny Wong have been talking diplomacy. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer urging everyone to step back, take a cool head on this, act through diplomatic channels. Diplomacy is certainly coming after the military might now.
Yeah, and I think if we look back to that G7 summit that took place in Canada, where it was effectively a G6+1, you had leaders like Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney from Canada, and Keir Starmer from the UK, effectively telling the US president that diplomacy needed to be the path. They all agreed that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, but the only way to achieve that, they believed, was via diplomatic means. Donald Trump was the outsider, so much so that he decided to leave that summit early and return to Washington, and that set in train this path to these strikes that the US has carried out on Iranian soil.
And as Mark Riley, our political editor who was there, was saying, Trump didn't want to be forced into signing some agreement at the end of all of that, saying that he wouldn't take action. So he bolted. And before he had to.
The question will be, what is the environment going to be like at this NATO summit that's coming up in The Hague for Donald Trump?
Hugh, a little bit of Australian reaction. The Victoria Premier Jacinda Allen has just spoken, saying that the escalating situation in Iran as a result of the conflict is deeply distressing, particularly for the families and communities in her state of Victoria that have deep personal and family connections to the region. Haven't heard from the Prime Minister yet, but we'd imagine that won't be too far away at all. What we did, actually, we should clarify too that the President and the the Pentagon have made it very, very clear that after those strikes made by those B-2 bombers and the launch of what we believe were 30 Tomahawk missiles, which could have come from aircraft carriers or submarines, you were telling me, they are all out of the region as well.
Yun po, nadinig niyo po at napanood po natin ng sabay-sabay itong special coverage na tinampok nga dito yung Amerika in-strike yung mga nuclear sites ng Iran. At nagdidiwa nga itong si Donald Trump. Sinikap po natin na hindi magkomento dahil baka wala po tayong alam sa gerang ito kaya hindi po tayo masyadong nagkomento at hindi po natin alam kung sino ba talaga ang tunay na papanigan at paniniwalaan natin, no? Napakaganda po noong istoryang ito na ito nga si Donald Trump nagpasya na nga na tuluyan lang magipagkampihan dito sa Iraq at binomba nila yung nuclear sites. O ba yun mga kababayan, hanggang dito na lamang po ang ating reaction video. Lagi po kayong mag-iingat at God bless. Duterte po tayo hanggang dulo.